To most people, Steam is the polished face of PC gaming, a storefront that just works. But the truth is, Steam's history is one of strange risks, bold failures, and completely out-of-nowhere experiments. Valve, the company behind Steam, as we know and love, has never been afraid to swim upstream, even if it meant crashing into a wall. Sometimes it worked out brilliantly, and other times not so much. But in almost every case, what looked weird at the time ended up laying the groundwork for something bigger. From hardware no one bought, to sequels that threw out the original game entirely, to the time Valve tried to fix console gaming from inside a PlayStation. This is the story of how Steam's history is shockingly weird, and why that's actually a good thing. Let's go back to 2015. Valve announces a fleet of Steam machines. Not one box, but a dozen. All different specs from different manufacturers. Kinda confusing. I mean, the idea was to give PC gamers a console-like experience in their living rooms, with standardized hardware, their own operating system called SteamOS installed, and a controller designed by Valve themselves. Everything except, games optimized for Linux. It was ambitious and bold, but it flopped. Most gamers were confused, and rightly so. I mean, a lot of us were asking, why would you buy a PC with limited compatibility when you could just hook up your actual PC to a TV? And while SteamOS sounded good on paper, it lacked full compatibility with most Windows-only games. Worse, the Steam machine branding was a mess, and different vendors and prices all over the place just made it confusing, especially for casual consumers who probably aren't going to buy this thing in the first place because they're wondering why all the games on Steam just don't work. But here is the kicker. Even though Steam machines failed, they weren't a waste. They were a test and a proving ground for three big things. I showed two, but I meant three. Number one is SteamOS itself. Number two is controller support across big picture mode. And number three is the eventual development of the wonderful Steam Deck. Without Steam machines, there would be no Steam Deck. And what once looked like a laughable attempt to clone what consoles were doing turned out to be a foundation for Valve's greatest hardware success yet. Ah yes, that strange touchpad-powered device that looked like it was designed for a parallel dimension. Nothing like it existed at the time. There was no D-pad, no standard face buttons. Instead, two haptic touchpads, customizable controls, and a million configuration options, and that's honestly the best part of it. On paper, and at the time, it was the ultimate do-everything controller. Mouse emulation, gyro, full keyboard support. But in practice, it was a nightmare for casual players. But Valve wasn't trying to clone an Xbox controller. They were trying to solve a real problem. How do you play PC-only games, especially mouse-heavy ones, on a couch without a mouse? And for a niche group of users, the Steam controller was a revolution. Modders adored it, accessibility advocates praised its potential, and strategy gamers who lived in Civilization and City Skylines made it work, and it worked great. Still, it never caught on with the masses. Valve discontinued it in 2019, and for most gamers, it was just a footnote. But again, failure doesn't mean irrelevance. The Steam controller software layer still exists. Steam Input, Valve's universal controller support system, came directly from those experiments. Today, it powers the Steam Deck, those little touchpads on the side, right from the Steam controller. And this system lets players remap controls across any controller, and even allows community-made configurations for complex games. The Steam controller might have failed as hardware, but it succeeded as a software revolution. Let's talk about a time in 2007 when Valve just said, instead of buying one game, why don't you just have 5? The orange box is a compilation so stacked, it honestly feels like a typo. I don't know how they profited off of this. It included Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, Portal, and Team Fortress 2. All in one literal box. 5 legendary games, 2 of which had never even been announced until that year. That alone is wild, but the real insanity? Valve marketed Portal, one of the most innovative puzzle games ever made, as a side dish, a bonus, something you might not even play first. Meanwhile, TF2 was unrecognizable from its predecessor. The original Team Fortress was gritty, militaristic, almost Rainbow Six adjacent. Team Fortress 2? A cartoony, Pixar-looking class shooter that leaned into comedy and chaos. It was a total theme flip, And at the time, people weren't sure if Valve had lost their minds. The orange box also marked Valve's first big push onto consoles, the Xbox 360 and PS3 to be precise. The Xbox version ran pretty well. The PS3 port, on the other hand, which funny enough was handled by EA, was rough, buggy, sluggish, and missing features. Valve would later say they regretted not doing it in-house. But here's the result. The orange box became a critical and commercial success. Portal went viral. TF2 became a long-running juggernaut to this day. And the compilation format showed how bundled games could still have individual identities. It was weird, and it shouldn't have worked, but it's remembered as one of the best game collections ever released. And honestly, you could still pick up a digital version of it on Steam for like $1 sometimes. It comes with Portal and all the Half-Life episodes. Heck, you could just get the whole Valve collection for $1 to $5 at some points. If you haven't done it yet, what are you doing? Going back a little bit to 1998, first-person shooters were all about speed and chaos. We had things like Quake, Doom, and Unreal. It was all about run fast, shoot faster, and get to the exit. Then Half-Life came out and asked, what if you didn't skip the story? It opened not with a gun, but with a monorail ride, no weapons in hand. And this wasn't a cutscene. It's just you in the world slowly absorbing its tone. Scientists were chattering. Security guards yawn. You arrive at work like it's any other day. And then all hell breaks loose. Now, Valve didn't invent narrative shooters, but Half-Life redefined how stories could be told inside them. No cinematics, no dialogue boxes. These were all real-time, voice-acted segments, in-world events, and environmental storytelling. At the time, this was radical. It slowed the pace. It asked you to look at your surroundings. It gave your character, Gordon Freeman, the GOAT, no voice, yet turned him into a legend. The only voice he really had was your HEV suit going, "Lethal threat detected, administering morphine." Half-Life was so different that some early players thought it was broken. Where's the gun, they'd ask. But Valve wasn't chasing trends. They were setting them. Today, narrative FPS design, from BioShock to Metro to Titanfall 2, owes a debt to that bold choice Valve made many years ago. And it wasn't just Half-Life's content, it was its modding community. Take Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat, Natural Selection, they all came from Half-Life mods. Valve bet on a slower, smarter, story-first shooter at a time when the genre wanted to go faster, and it worked. Valve is synonymous with PC gaming if you couldn't figure that out by now, but that didn't stop them from trying the console game. The results? Complicated at best. Now, I'm not talking about creating a console like with the Steam machine, I'm talking about publishing to consoles. And let's start with Team Fortress 2. The console version shipped on Xbox 360 and PS3 as part of the orange box like we discussed earlier. But as the PC version exploded with updates, hats, new maps, and game modes, the console version stayed frozen in time. Why? Console patching restrictions. Now, on Xbox, every update required certification from Microsoft, often with additional fees. Valve, known for iterating constantly, couldn't update TF2 freely. Eventually, they just gave up. TF2 on console became a ghost, a version that never evolved. Then came Portal 2 in 2011, and here's where it gets weird again. Valve partnered with Sony to bring Steamworks to the PS3 version. That meant cloud saves, cross-platform multiplayer, and even a free PC copy of the game when you bought the PS3 disc, which helped a lot of people onboard onto Steam at the time. This was unheard of. Consoles never gave you PC versions for free, and it was Valve's way of sneaking Steam onto consoles. Not literally, but through infrastructure. Still, it didn't last, and Valve tried their hardest. I mean, the experiment was cool, but it was quite limited. Crossplay was super clunky, and future games never replicated the model. Valve learned what we all know now. Console ecosystems are way too locked down. For a company that thrives on openness and iteration, it was never a good fit. Sure, consoles are a little more open nowadays with games like Fortnite and Call of Duty getting constant updates, but it just goes to show how they kind of paved the way for these iterative game updates. So they went back to what they do best, building for PC. But their console efforts remain a fascinating what if. In 2012, Valve wanted to open Steam to more indie games. Enter Steam Greenlight. Developers would post their projects. Users would vote on what they wanted to see. It sounded quite democratic and fair, but soon the cracks started to show. There was vote brigading, bots, developers begging for votes on social media. Worse, there was no transparency on what actually got picked or when. Some games with thousands of votes were ignored. Others with barely any made it through. Then came the shovelware flood. Because once Greenlight proved that anything could get in, developers started posting low-effort projects just to test the system, sometimes with even plagiarized assets or reskinned mobile games. Valve eventually replaced it with Steam Direct. This is a $100 per game submission fee system. It's less romantic, but it's more effective. But Greenlight's chaotic experiment showed just how hard it is to balance openness with quality. It was weird, and it failed, but it helped shape how indie games are onboarded today. Now, by 2019, most people assumed VR had missed its shot. The Oculus hype had cooled, the PSVR library was quite niche, and most killer apps were glorified tech demos. Then Valve said, "Watch me cook," and dropped Half-Life Alyx. I've talked about this extensively in a past video, but this was a full-length AAA VR exclusive prequel to one of the most beloved franchises ever, and this was a new entry to a franchise fans haven't heard from in years. This was a real game, and it shipped alongside the Valve Index, a high-end headset with finger tracking and precision sensors. The decision? Wildly risky. VR had low install bases. No other company was making $60 story-driven VR exclusives. Even fans weren't sure if it made sense. But Alyx was a hit, critically adored, technologically jaw-dropping. It justified VR for many skeptics, and reignited interest in the medium. Steam VR surged. The Index became a gold standard, and VR developers suddenly had a new benchmark to aim for. In a weird way, it was the Steam Machine situation all over again, except this time it worked. When you look back at Steam's history, the failed hardware, the wild experiments, the risks that didn't pan out, you realize something. Valve doesn't succeed in spite of being weird. They succeed because of it. Every strange project they've ever done, Steam Controller, Greenlight, even SteamOS, teaches them something. And that knowledge feeds into the next innovation. They don't always explain themselves. They don't always market clearly, but Valve keeps moving, keeps throwing ideas at the wall until something finally sticks. And when it does stick, it changes PC gaming and the broader gaming landscape forever. So yeah, Steam's history is shockingly weird, but maybe that's also why it's shockingly great. If you enjoyed this little deep dive into Steam's history and some weird decisions they've made, hit the like button, hit subscribe. What do you think is the weirdest innovation Steam came up with? Comment down below with what you thought. By now, I've hit 5,000 subscribers, and without all of you, I really couldn't have hit this. I've been doing this for, 6 months now, and just the growth has been super crazy. So thank you all for your comments, your support. It just means so much. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.